welcome to our fourth lesson of the mini course. Today we're going to talk about horoscope houses. At this moment I'm observing an horoscope grid that is completely empty, devoid of any planets, numbers or any other elements. In our previous lesson, we were discussing the signs of the zodiac in the horoscope and astrology in general, and exploring what their personalities are like. Furthermore, in this third lesson, I explicitly stated that the zodiac sign is never written in words inside the horoscope, but solely conveyed through a code word, without any textual representation. So, the number 1 is familiar, the number 2 is the sign of Taurus, the number 3 is Gemini, and so on up to 12. And today, when we are going to study horoscopes at home, we have to assign numbers to them in order to keep track. And you may possibly get a little bit confused about the location of the zodiac sign number and the location of the horoscope house number, which can lead to some uncertainty and difficulty in understanding. You need to be aware of the following. The most crucial thing to know is that the planets orbiting the Sun move in a counterclockwise direction. So, like if we're observing the solar system from the North Pole, from the northern side, and just viewing it in a 2D image, we will see that all the planets are moving in a counterclockwise direction. And exactly the same, while keeping this movement and this logic, the houses of the horoscope are numbered in the horoscope. The initial residence of the horoscope is situated in this position, in the upper central corner. This is a square. The house numbering goes counterclockwise around the square in a circular pattern. The numbers you observe in the horoscope, well, for instance, in this case it would indicate 4. The numeral 5. Here is the numeral 6 and so forth, the numeral 7 and so forth, and so on and so forth. This is not a horoscope thing, it's the zodiac signs that ended up in this house. The zodiac signs determine the astrological characteristics of the people who live in this place. In Jyotish astrology, the equal house system of the horoscope signifies that the 360 degrees of the circle are divided into 12 sectors, which leads to 30 degrees in each sector. So in astrology, our zodiac signs have a span of 30 degrees, and houses also have a span of 30 degrees. So the houses of the horoscope, such as your life sphere, each encompass one zodiac sign in the realm of Indian astrology, specifically Jyotish, which is a traditional system of astrology in India. And the boundaries of the zodiac sign and the boundaries of the horoscope house, that is the spheres of life, coincide. So in case we observe this type of numbering, it is important to remember that 4 does not represent the house number. The home is consistently prioritized as the first, second, third, fourth, and subsequent options here, and so on and so forth. This is the zodiac sign that has fully entered the first house of the zodiac. Cancer represents the 4th sign of the zodiac system. The 5th zodiac sign is Leo, the 6th zodiac sign is Virgo, the 7th is Libra, and thus we would proceed further. Well, let us continue sketching to determine our course of action after 12 o'clock, huh? Let's see what we should do next. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 1st. So we're going back to the beginning. The first one is an Aries. The second one is our bull. We've got ourselves a third twin. So here's how a horoscope for a rising Cancer sign can look like for us. So who possesses the Cancer sign in the first house? But I am telling you once more, this numbering represents the designation of the zodiac signs. This is extremely important. For instance, in the sign of Aries, we will have the planet Venus. Venus is in the sign of Aries because it's the number 1 here. This is the zodiac sign number assigned to Aries. As an illustration, the position of the Sun is in the zodiac sign of Taurus. Can't see him here. Next to the Sun is a small number 2. This is the sign of Taurus. And so on and so forth. Well, for example, here we have Saturn. Ask yourself a question, answer the question, what zodiac sign is Saturn in? The 10th zodiac sign, according to the scheme we studied in the previous lesson, is Capricorn. In this horoscope, the planet Saturn is situated in the zodiac sign of Capricorn. Therefore, all digital values are always associated with and belong to this specific zodiac sign. You must remember this for sure. And today we are not going to discuss that particular topic. So we recalled it, made notes, and set it aside. And now we are going to discuss these exact things about this particular layer of the horoscope, the house of the horoscope. Well, let's discuss each of them. Let's start with you from the first house of the horoscope. The first house is the most important house in the whole horoscope. He contains information about a person's personality, about his character, about his presentation, as well as about those instinctive patterns that a person applies, even without thinking, about how he needs to act in this or that situation. If we talk about this process from a biological perspective, we can recall the fact that the reptilian brain of a human, that is the part responsible for instincts and unconscious primary behavior, works tens of thousands of times faster than the cortex of the brain, that is, our conscious part of the brain. So, when a person finds themselves in a certain situation, starting from the smallest things like choosing a dessert or selecting a product in a store, and ending with making important decisions and behaving in the most crucial moments of their life, a person primarily relies on their reptilian brain and these innate patterns that pop up and jump out of it until they are suppressed or subdued by some conscious behavior. And that's the pattern that the zodiac sign in the first house of the horoscope possesses. So actually the real zodiac sign is precisely the zodiac sign in the first house, not the zodiac sign of the sun, as we are used to thinking and saying. Just a reminder, those horoscopes from magazines, newspapers, and the internet are all based on your sun sign. Honestly, it's not reliable. The zodiac sign in the first house changes every 2 hours because all 12 zodiac signs pass in 24 hours. So even if you were born on the same day as someone else, you'll notice that you're different, that you have your own character, and this person has their own character. This happens precisely because the time of birth is different, or the cities in which you were born are different, and at that time over this area, a different zodiac sign was rising in the east, not the same as yours. The initial house has an impact on and mirrors an individual's self-esteem, their image, their character, this inner pattern, as well as their health, well-being, and overall appearance. If a person encounters some very significant obstacles in their development, such as war, prison, or an insurmountable illness, undoubtedly, this should be reflected in the heavy positions of the planets in the first house. But hopefully, in your and your loved ones' horoscopes, you won't find these positions. The second house of the horoscope is always located in this part. Always. This is unbreakable. This is an unchangeable matrix of spheres of life that corresponds to the residence in which they are situated and undergo development, progression, and maturation. So the numbers in the horoscope will be changing. Everyone's zodiac signs are different, but they will never move houses. Well, at least thanks for that. The second house of the horoscope is responsible for finances, for a person's speech, for what resources he can seize in this life or what resources he possesses. And that's why they say, yeah, in Russia, if a worker eats poorly, it means he'll work poorly. He does not have sufficient health to work extensively. And this is linked to the second residence of available resources. What resources do you possess? Strength, energy, sleep, food, the ability to work extensively, and so forth. All of these are connected to the second house. Accordingly, if there are evil planets in the second house, some poorly positioned planets, then a person will eat poorly, or he will need to follow a diet due to which he cannot eat certain food groups due to allergies or some illness, or simply the external circumstances of life will be unfavorable. The person will not eat enough, have poor nutrition. All of this is related to the second house indicators, and the second house is also connected to the throat chakra of a person. He shows how actively a person communicates, how they communicate. If there are heavy planets like Ketu and Saturn there, then the person will be silent. He's brutal in his communication. If it's Mars, then the person will be emotional and will use foul language. If there are soft planets such as Venus, the Moon, and Jupiter, then a person's speech will be educated, refined, and it will be pleasant. Well, Jupiter in the second house often, for example, gives lawyers or teacher politicians. Venus in second house can give beautiful voice. Well, I mean, second house tied to throat chakra, person's eating, energy they'll get, how well they'll live, expressed in nutrition and overall well-being. His speech also relies on the second house, well, and correspondingly finances. Finances are also like an indicator of well-being. The resource associated with these categories, the monetary resource, also goes to the second house. You can determine it by this house. The third house of the horoscope is consistently positioned in this section of the horoscope, and it symbolizes our siblings, including both brothers and sisters. But that's not all, because not everyone has brothers and sisters. Some people are born alone in the family. If there are no brothers and sisters, then other interpretations are included. Actually, those who have siblings also get included in these interpretations. For instance, that is an individual's endeavor. The third residence is connected with hands, with the human body and with hands. What are we going to do with our own hands? We are going to construct our own lives. We are going to be go-getters. We are going to be sociable. Or we are going to engage in questionable activities, perhaps even illegal actions. Maybe we are going to be idle, and so on and so forth. The third house is accountable for all of our personal initiatives to alter our lives. Entrepreneurship, sports, hobbies, any of our initiatives and more are areas we focus on. The third house of the horoscope reveals their nature. Additionally, it's akin to the first house of experiences. The third house is responsible for short trips. Generally, it entails road trips, train rides, or other modes of transportation that do not necessitate traveling vast distances of thousands of kilometers. So it's like short trips around the region to the neighboring city. Well, I'd say up to 1,000 kilometers. The fourth house of the horoscope. This is the region that is consistently present in this location. She's not moving in with us. Only the numbers representing the zodiac signs are moving. Let's emphasize on this again. The fourth house of the horoscope shows a person's emotional state, how inclined they are to be happy, whether their thoughts are heavy or light inside them, whether they are optimistic or not, and how their relationship with their mother will develop, because astrology really latches onto Freudian theory and confirms it. The fourth house of the horoscope, which is associated with the mother and childhood, with infant experience, strongly resonates with the emotions we experience later on. Can we discover peace and comfort within our home? Are we experiencing harmony internally? Are you optimistic? Can people be happy even if they have everything? Also, the fourth house is linked to indicators of the mind, relationships with the mother, and occasionally displays elements of luxury. So, if there are wealthy planets such as the Sun, Jupiter, and Venus, then an individual will possess a great deal of property, a substantial amount of luxury, and their relationship with their mother will likely be highly harmonious. Also, the fourth house is our residence. It is the place where we live, our designated place of residence. So if the favorable planets are in the fourth house, it means that we're living well in a particular place. If there are many complex planets in the fourth house, such as those that are energetically heavy or Mercury, it indicates frequent relocation. We have got to depart from the place of our birth, the place where we were raised, or leave our own dwelling somewhere out there on business trips or due to unfavorable circumstances. In astrology, it's generally believed that the fewer planets there are in the fourth house and the less movement there is, the better. It's like a person is useful where they were born. From the perspective of classical astrology, moving is considered an unlucky event. So what could make you leave your village? It's either war, famine, or a disease outbreak. Or maybe you turned into a criminal, and this society kicked you out. It excluded you from its ranks. That is why the fourth house and real estate are so closely connected, which means that the emotional shock is like you moved, you jumped out of your community where you are supposed to be. Over the years, over the centuries, this situation changes, and now unfavorable planets in the fourth house, well, are actually more desirable because people love to travel, change countries. Many, not all, right now not all of our students will agree with me. The fifth house is always located right in this little corner triangle, and it's responsible for a person's brain, their education, their intellect, and their ability to synthesize complex ideas, process information, and come to some kind of judgment from it. From this brain function, from this body function, other interpretations of the fifth house are derived and manifested. This is not just a house of education, not just a house of intellect, it's also a house of creativity. That's why all the folks involved in theater, literature, any kind of art, any significant creative work usually have their fifth house heavily emphasized. If an individual possesses a robust fifth house, they are highly likely to have received an education and may be employed in the field of education, either through self-study or by working with children. How do children in the fifth residence knit with all the parameters we listed? Children are also a form of art. Children are the legacy we leave behind. A strong fifth house not only indicates intellectual development, but also the potential for a happy parenthood, motherhood, or fatherhood. He has the potential to become a father multiple times, will have interactions with the kids, will find his happiness in this role, and everything will be fine. That's how the strong fifth house works in the horoscope. Also, in the interpretation of the fifth house, we include romance or infatuation. And here I want to explain this nuance because in general, the relationship is going in two ways. So this seventh house, which we have not studied yet, it represents marriage, and the fifth house depicts courtship. These are all the situations in which we go to a concert, to the movies, to some beautiful event, when we attempt to present ourselves in the most favorable way possible. We don't go to such sick places, some miserable ones. We always put our best foot forward. The fifth house is connected to, well, like with a theoretical concept, in a way that is difficult to explain. The fifth house is linked to Leo in astrology. The Leo sign also presents itself in the best possible light, in a theatrical way, from a perspective that is acceptable in society and welcomes the community. And that is why the fifth house is the house of relationships that have not crossed the line of we live together yet. When they're planning a date, it's when it's convenient for both, when both are healthy, to show themselves in the best light. So the fifth house here also resonates with those relationships that are still in the stage of falling in love, in the stage of initial dates. And it's very interesting to see in the horoscope which people know how to date but don't know how to live in marriage, which ones know how to live in marriage but don't know how to date, and who knows how to do both. He is good at building relationships from the beginning and staying happy with that person in the long run. This is the sixth house, home sweet home. This is the grind, our daily grind, the same old routine, day in and day out, without any variation. It was a big eye-opener for me when I started doing mass consulting, because very few people actually enjoy this routine and feel good about managing themselves within the routine, within these little steps that we take towards our big goals. By the way, in order to have significant goals, it is necessary for this house to remain strong. We will discuss it at a later time. Therefore, the sixth house is linked to the daily actions we perform at work or at home in order to attain a valuable outcome, a valuable action. But the sixth house has a flip side. He's tied up with debts, enemies, and illnesses, with everything we come across, clash with, which poses a challenge to us on our way to our goals. So if you want to see how things will go for you at your workplace with your colleagues, then this here is the sixth house. In this place, they additionally determine conflicts, yes, courts and conflicts that we can potentially experience. Well, the topic of determining conflicts, court cases, that's not something for a beginner astrologer, and we certainly won't be able to dwell on it for long here. In our school, we excel at determining the cases that eventually make it to court and those that do not, showcasing our expertise in this area of study. These will be monetary penalties, non-financial ones, etc. So all of this is laid out in the sixth house. We love to analyze all of this, and we're good at telling the difference. Also, diseases are associated with the sixth house. And here there's some sort of philosophical connection. So a sixth filled house means that a person will have a lot of work every day to invest in their health. Either he'll do it willingly or life will make him. So like some kind of illness will come and there's no way to escape it anymore. When I consult, I always check for many planets in the sixth house. A person should focus on self-improvement, invest in health to avoid life's pressures. I'd rather do it willingly. As philosophers say, an obedient person is led by fate, while an adventurous one is dragged by it. So it is preferable that we focus on the sixth house in a positive manner. The seventh house is positioned at the bottom, which is directly opposite to the first house in the horoscope chart. And here we encounter symmetry. It is possible to draw an axis that divides the horoscope into two separate parts, creating a sense of balance and harmony. This is where we had our first house, remember? First, here's the seventh house right across from the first one. He consistently stays there. The seventh house is the house of marriage, the residence of our enduring long-term relationship. By the way, from an astrology standpoint, if you're living together but not married, that's your own damn problem, your own damn priorities and preferences, because according to astrology, that's a marriage. And from an astrological point of view, you can also see when this marriage will end, how long it will be, how happy it will be, whether it will grow into children, joint property, and so on, or if it will just be a year or two living together and still breaking up. The seventh house of relationships shows us the kind of partners we have, who we attract. The first house is across from the seventh house. We're viewing it as the seventh wonder and desiring what's inside. What do you possess in your seventh house? What planet? What kind of character does she have? What zodiac sign do you have in your seventh house? Think about this topic because it's these kind of people that attract you with these qualities, with these values. It's really fascinating to interpret your horoscope from this perspective, even on a basic level. We provide knowledge right from the start, as you can see, systematic and structural, and that's the qualification of the school. The thing is, in order to handle the most basic stuff, you gotta have the highest qualifications. To elucidate this in a manner that is captivating at present, it requires to be methodical at present and exclude any additional details that merely seize your attention and squander your time and do not converge in a coherent operational framework. The seventh house of the horoscope indicates a long-term partnership in your life. It doesn't have to be a marriage partnership, it can be a business partnership, a friendly one, and so on. So the planets in the seventh house will show you what kind of partner you will have, what qualities they will possess. And if there are several planets there, then there will be several partners with different personalities. Next, we go into the eighth house. The eighth house is the house that is located across from the second one. Keep in mind, the second house was tasked with the responsibility for resources, for our health and for money, for the financial side of life. The eighth house opposes the second house, leading to discussions about crises, scandals, destruction, death, and dangerous situations where a person loses their resources or faces threats to their resources, putting their life and well-being at risk. These situations can have severe consequences, jeopardizing their stability and overall state of being. Also, the eighth house is for longevity, showing if a person will live a short or long life. This is the house of esoterics, because the eighth house is associated with the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio thinks extensively about death. He contemplates deeply about this reverse side of life, about the philosophical aspect, about what we will do after death. And this particular question regarding what happens after death gives rise to various meditations, philosophical inquiries, yoga practices, astrological explorations, and other esoteric and mystical disciplines. The eighth house is associated with unexpected circumstances, crisis situations, and it also shows inheritance situations. Because it could be funds that came to you from other individuals, or after getting married to someone. Women who possess a truly wealthy husband always have an incredibly strong eighth house in their astrology chart. Usually a few good planets around, either after someone's death. Also the theme of the eighth house. The ninth house of the horoscope is completely dedicated to learning, science, and spirituality, encompassing a wide range of knowledge and the exploration of higher truths. This is the precise spirituality that is encountered and felt deeply in the context of organized religion. The ninth house is linked to the utmost level of intellectual artistry. implying it encompasses scientific pursuits, as previously mentioned, and the highest level of, for instance, spiritual aspirations of an individual, the exploration of God, connections with God, and similar matters. The more you will come to understand that each individual has God's contingency plan, each individual has a particular path they are required to pursue. Whether he believes in higher powers or not, it doesn't matter. As I already said, fate leads the obedient but drags the disobedient, the stubborn one. The 9th house of the horoscope is opposite the 3rd. That's his opposite. Remember, our 3rd house showed short trips. So here's the thing. The 9th house indicates long trips, living abroad, maybe even on a different continent. Additionally, the 3rd house was linked to business, paperwork, communication, and business trips, whereas the 9th house signifies spiritual journeys for a more significant purpose. Perhaps the objective is within a religious framework. Perhaps the objective is to achieve a significant breakthrough in one's life, specifically a more pragmatic objective. However, the 9th house represents spiritual quests, the domain of far-off foreign lands, and living in another country. The 3rd house is for short trips, up to 1,000 kilometers. Also, the 9th house is for the father, the 3rd house for the brother or sister, who is next to you. And the 9th one shows the one who is in front of you, either the father or the mother. We had a 4th house for our mother and a 9th house for our father. Furthermore, the 9th house reveals the kind of teachers you will have in your life. So like there's this figure of a father. This is such an authoritative figure that imparts wisdom of life to you, I hope. Are there people who can fill in for a dad? It could be a stepfather. It could be some mentor who became like a father to you, who invested a lot in you, became a sort of guru for you, guiding you through life. To the lucky ones, their 9th house is pretty heavily influenced by mentors. Well, those who are interested in religion, of course, are also individuals with a strong 9th house, where at least one, but preferably multiple planets are present. The 10th house is the house of career, and it's opposite the 4th. Remember, the 4th house symbolized our apartment, our home, where we relax, where we are inside our little space. And here's the 10th house, that's our external implementation, social. It's what we do when we leave the house. The century is undergoing a slight transformation in this interpretation because you have the ability to work from home. However, even if you work from home, you still find yourself stepping out of the relaxed space and entering a realm of external life where you have to fight, achieve something, prove yourself to someone, compete, and so on in order to succeed. So the 10th house is opposite the 4th. Opposite the 4th, you have to leave the crib or that inner state of being and force yourself into the outside world where you have to go out there and achieve something. The 10th house shows a person's career, profession, their professionalism, how much success they can achieve, their social realization, and status. What's up? What's the deal with status? You have citizen status, that's a status. When you lose citizenship, you'll see defeat at home. You won't get a visa, you'll see a defeat at home, some kind of bad one. If you're about to have a change in your status, like going from single to married and going on maternity leave, status changed, all reflected in house 10. Let's proceed. The 11th house is consistently present. Do you recall our previous conversation about Aquarius? Aquarius is the wine bearer of Zeus. He's somewhere at the party, handing out and pouring wine. Same thing in the 11th house. So the symbolism is preserved here. Basically, they keep all the horoscope houses. Correlation with zodiac signs and philosophy of zodiac signs. Our 6th house was responsible for work, like a Virgo sign or something. 7th house is for marriage and partnership, and that's Libra, also a sign of partnership. The 8th house, it was a house of death, and right there we have our Scorpio, well, a philosophical sign theoretically connected, yes, with this concept of the 8th house. So here's the thing, the 11th house, it's all about Zeus's crown. And this is the house of desires, the house of entertainment, the house of communication, the house of our friends, as well as our older brothers and sisters. So here the little ones were going, and here the older ones were. There is also this kind of systemic confrontation between the younger siblings and the older ones in the third house. Moreover, individuals from the 11th house are attending, and we may come across them at these Zeus parties. These are our buddies, friends, acquaintances, I don't know, some people we hang out with, our social circle, the individuals we spend time with. And it is necessary for them to express that bloggers, they possess the manifestation of the 11th house because they have like a considerable number of these virtual friends. Our successes also come from the 11th house, which is actually the house of money accumulation, as well as everything related to bonuses, our certificates, trophies, our achievements, some statuses that society assigns to us. That's also the 11th house. And mind you, the 11th house, it's across from the 5th. So either we accumulate thoughts in our heads and we have some kind of creativity pouring out of us from within. Either we derive enjoyment from our experiences in the external world, or we gain intangible wealth in the form of knowledge, wisdom, and meaningful connections with others. Science or art, either we indulge in the simplest pleasures, have some fun, grab a drink, chat, and grab a bite to eat. Well, something along those lines, that's where the standoff lies. But both houses are considered favorable. Well, you know, in numerous ways. There are scarcely any favorable houses in this vicinity whatsoever, according to some authors, but we need to remember with you that the 11th house, it's not bad. He also demonstrates certain joys of life and so on. However, it is not solely a non-material pleasure, but rather a pleasure that involves material elements. Go ahead. The last house of the horoscope. So slowly but surely we have explored all areas of life about astrology and the horoscope. The 12th house. To understand the specifics of the 12th house, you need to remember about the 6th. Remember, the 6th house is our daily grind to improve financially. So we set a goal, let's say, to become, I don't know, the head of the department. And here we are working each and every day. 5 times per week we perform some tasks, we concentrate, we participate in activities related to the Virgo zodiac sign. And the house across the street, it's like the opposite. The number 12 signifies relaxation, solitude, meditation, self-discovery, and introspection. And many, by the way, when they take a look inside themselves, find emptiness and loneliness there. So here's the thing, the whole power of fish, the whole power of the 12th house is that when life leaves itself alone with its own ideas, with itself, the main thing is that there is no emptiness or some kind of suffering is not found there. The 12th house is linked to renunciation and solitude. This can be achieved through your own initiative and personal determination. The guy wants to be alone for a bit. And each of you has those days every month when the moon enters the 12th house and you just want to be alone. Outside of all communication, maybe disappear from social networks, not responding to anyone, and just internally recover. Now that's the energy of the 12th house. And either we recover and work through our inner world voluntarily, or life forces us to. So, like, if we don't spend time alone with ourselves, if we don't follow the horoscope, like trying to fight against it, then we'll have illnesses, and circumstances that will leave us feeling lonely. This won't be solitude, but specifically loneliness. It's better to do everything, follow the horoscope, and do everything voluntarily. The 12th house is also commonly known as the house of journeys, because it is all about giving up and being alone, emphasizing surrender and solitude. According to ancient astrological social beliefs, the only way you could be alone was if you were excluded from your native village, thereby being isolated from its community. If you got kicked out because people lived in clans, especially since we're studying Indian astrology, their people lived in big groups in general, and it was impossible to stay alone even inside the house. Everyone lived in such a big space, so loneliness was a luxury, which was available to the chosen ones or to criminals who were simply excluded from society. Well, that's the most negative option. Or a person would retreat into meditation, a person would retreat into spiritual life, and then seclusion was accessible to him. Well, either he got sick, they pushed him away from everyone so he wouldn't infect anyone, and now he's also alone. All of this is the signs of the 12th house. What else? So, what's the difference between house 12 and 6? We unwind here, we labor here, we gather illnesses here, we receive medical treatment here. We are eliminating these illnesses, recovering, and other similar things of that nature. Well, you also need to remember that this is a journey. Why travel? Because in the past an individual didn't remain solitary. If he ended up alone, he got kicked out of his circle, which means something terrible happened. Now let's discuss the rising sign, which refers to an individual's ascendant point. Actually, this concept is pretty simple. I've already explained it to you, but we'll still talk about it so that everything is clear and organized. Lagna, rising sign or ascendant, is one and the same, meaning that in different schools, in different astrological traditions, one of these three terms is used to denote the same thing. This is the contact point between the horizon and a specific zodiac sign in the east, in that area where you all were born, at the time you all were born. So, roughly speaking, if someone close to you had looked towards the east at the moment of your birth and could distinguish the stars, knowing how they look, they would have been able to see and identify a zodiac sign in the night sky. So, he was in the process of rising when you were born. Here is a pretend observer who is not real. Let's assume it's you, or let it be, like in a cradle and other similar things and whatnot. And in some way, these stars were positioned in the sky above you, and here were the planets, let's say, this is Saturn, this is Venus, and so on and so forth, and many more celestial bodies. Drew it like the moon, so in this particular location, on the eastern side, the zodiac signs rise and gradually move towards the western side, ultimately reaching the horizon where the sun sets. This is the western part, this is the eastern part. The eastern part is the first house of the horoscope, the western part is the seventh house. Here in the middle above you, that's the zenith, meaning the highest point where the planet can be. Your 10th house, your career achievement, what you can't see, what is hidden down there, you won't even see it at all. It will be in the southern half of the sky. Here's the 4th house. This is your inner essence, your emotions, what you do not reveal or display to others. And this is our coordinate system. So a horoscope is akin to a schematic representation of the entire system we have in place. What was happening in the east? What zodiac sign was rising and moving at the moment you were born? Which planets were positioned above you? This is the key to achieving career fulfillment. You will shine the most in society. Which planets were at sunset and were opposite the east? Here's your partner, your marital relationship. And everything else is hidden there underground, roughly speaking, on the southern half of the sky. It is not visible to an observer born in the northern hemisphere, but it also holds significance for certain internal aspects of our life that should not be overlooked. Lagna is that zodiac sign, it's the 30 degrees that was on the eastern side at the precise moment when you were born. And in strict terms, Lagna is similar to the precise degree, like the degree at which you were born within this sign, like the specific degree that crossed the horizon line during your birth. In general, Lagna is akin to the initial point of departure for your entire destiny. So, people who were born on the same day will get different signs in the east, depending on when they were born. Because the signs fly by very quickly. The Earth spins for 24 hours, making one full rotation, and all 12 signs fly by in 24 hours. So every person will have a distinct level of lag and a distinct zodiac sign in the eastern region. Where is Lagna positioned in the horoscope? This is our initial home. Therefore, similar to, we are flipping that picture we recently had, Now that's what I call the east, what I call the west, the planets above at zenith, and the ones hiding underground, right here in this half. So Lagna is this zodiac sign. Everyone here will have a different number. Some people have 5, some have 1, some have 10. It does not matter. You must remember, a digit is not equivalent to the number of a house. Homes don't move. Only zodiac signs move. So if you've got a 2 here, that means you're a rising Taurus. Here he is, the rising one here is the sign of Aries, the sign of Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so on. As we discussed in the 3rd lesson, we talked about the signs of tightening and used this matrix based on the numerical code according to the sequence of signs Zodiac. Or, for example, another horoscope. There's the number 7 here. So this person was born with a rising sign of Libra because Libra is the 7th sign of the zodiac. I hope you grasp that because we have gone over it in great detail many times before. The distribution of the zodiac signs, as I already mentioned, goes counterclockwise. That's just the way things go. The planets move counterclockwise if you observe our entire solar system from the North Pole viewpoint. We were born in the Northern Hemisphere, so we prioritize the Northern Hemisphere in the calculation of all our thoughts in general. First, check out how the zodiac signs are arranged. So here, let's say Aquarius, the 11th sign of the zodiac, is in the first house. Next up, the 12th sign. And that's the end of the zodiac sign list. Then we return to the starting point. First, second, third, fourth zodiac sign, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so on and so forth. So in the first house of this horoscope, we have the sign of Aquarius. In the fourth house right here, we have the sign of Taurus. In our seventh house of relationships, we have the sign of Leo. And in the 10th house of careers, we have the sign of Scorpio. Kindly remind me which zodiac signs are ruled by the solid planets, if you don't mind. Let us do it in this manner. The planet Mars governs the 1st and 8th signs of the zodiac. This is going to be important for you, these house managers here. We had a conversation about this with you in the previous lesson, but it would not hurt to reiterate and go over it again. We're discussing the zodiac signs, the 1st and 8th ones, namely Aries and Scorpio, governed by Mars. And next we have the 2nd and 7th ones, namely Taurus and Libra, governed by Venus. The 3rd and 6th positions in the series are occupied by Mercury. Gemini and Virgo are the 3rd and 6th signs in the zodiac. The 4th one is represented by the moon, which holds significant symbolism in astrology. The moon and the sun are ruled by the same sign, umbrella guy. 5th, sun. Leo under the guidance of the sun. They already mentioned the 6th, they mentioned the 7th, they mentioned the 8th. Jupiter is the planet occupying the 9th and 12th positions in the sequence. It is the largest planet in our solar system. And the 10th position, the 11th planet in our solar system, is Saturn, known for its iconic rings and distinctive yellowish hue. Here is the way energy is distributed in the horoscope. Please remember or take a picture of this list so that you have it right in front of your eyes and can refer to it whenever needed. That's all for today. What significant actions are you able to take after completing this instructional session? Now you have the ability to determine in which residences, that is, in which geographical areas your planets are located. Accordingly, knowing the nature of each planet and what it inclines you towards, you can already understand which houses are accentuated for you, which houses, spheres of life, are the most important for you, in which houses your social realization is located, that is the sun, in which house your moon is located, that is your thoughts, emotional state, from which house, from success, your emotional state depends the most in which matters. Where is your Venus at? So, who are you going to fall in love with? What is up, folks? Which house? Which house? In what situations will you be crossing paths with them? If Venus is in the 6th, then it's either work or the hospital. If Venus is in the 10th, it means in the career. There could be clients, customers, or some work colleagues too. If it's in the 3rd house, it signifies that it's related to traveling. Consider the distribution of planets in your horoscope, you know? Without a doubt, a planet that symbolizes a specific sphere of life will undoubtedly be connected to the astrological house in which it is positioned. I suggest you guys discuss this with each other, with your loved ones, with those individuals you have already, hopefully, collaborated with in prior lessons. Around the planets, around the zodiac signs, return to these horoscopes once again and take another look at which areas of your life you are currently leading in, where you have the most planets positioned. Are the planets evenly distributed throughout the horoscope, or are they concentrated in a specific area or region within the horoscope chart? So you're also focused in this area of life. With these interesting studies, I hope you'll check them out and go through them before the next class. Now we have our 5th lesson, where we'll cover the algorithm for interpreting horoscopes for beginner astrologers.